The World Ocean Day is celebrated on the 8th of June. The oceans cover about 71% of the Earth's surface. They support the greatest biodiversity on the planet and provide more than 50% of the primary global production. They are known as the largest carbon reservoir of the Earth, holding 54 times more carbon than the atmosphere. With so much significance, do we actually understand the oceans? Is one Oceans Day enough for something as significant which provides sustenance to our life? Today, I'll be talking about the ocean's relationship with our environment, particularly the natural environment and the climate, and the way it influences life on the planet. It may be slightly longish than my usual vlogs, but I'm sure it will be worth your time, especially for the youngsters, because once only we understand the significance of the oceans, only then we can talk about their health. So please watch till the end. This is an ocean, or shall I say, this is the globe. As you can see that 70.8% of our planet is covered by water. This seamless body of saline water, covering more than two-thirds of the Earth's surface, is practically one large ocean, which may be called the world ocean. However, this large ocean is divided customarily into 5 geographical regions which are separately named, each as a different ocean. And you can see this on the slide as well. Why and how these names are given, we may leave this discussion for some other time. The important thing is to know that we now have 5 oceans which are practically connected into one large water body which envelops the entire landmass of the Earth, from north to south and from east to west. For today's discussion, most of the time when I say ocean, it would mean the world ocean, the entire body of saline water. What does the ocean do? It regulates the Earth system and it supplies living and non-living resources. So far, so good. It is these two functions primarily, heat sink and carbon sink, which are crucial for life on the planet. But before I explain this further, a bit of geography. This diagram shows how the Earth is divided into different temperature zones depending on primarily the sunlight these regions receive through the year. The areas in the middle around the equator, as you can see, get more heat because of direct sunshine and being closer to the sun. Whereas the areas on the periphery in the diagram get lesser sunshine because of the angle of impact and also because they are farther from the sun. As you can see, the region around the equator between the tropics is called the torrid zone. It is also called the tropical zone. This is the area with maximum direct sunlight. The tropics are regions of Earth that lie roughly in the middle of the globe. The tropics lie between the latitude lines of the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, 23.5 degrees either side, north and south. The tropics include the equator and account for 36% of Earth's landmass and are home to about a third of the world's population. This is the region where the sun can be right above your head at some point of the year. Beyond this region, the sun will never be directly above you, and that's why it is more exposed to sunlight and therefore hot or at least warm all year. Because of all that sun, the tropics don't experience the kind of seasons the rest of the earth does. The tropical seasons are broken up into just two: the wet season and the dry season. Between the polar regions and the tropics, we have the temperate zones, both in the north and south. And as the name suggests, these are the areas exposed to just reasonable sunlight and moderate climates. This is the area where you get all the different seasons. And then you have the polar regions, which are called the frigid zone. By the way, most of the population of Earth lives in the temperate zones. Now, the frigid zone. This is the area exposed to little or no sunlight. These high latitudes are mostly covered by ice, understandably, and not very conducive for life. There is some human population though in the Arctic zone, but no permanent humans living in the Antarctic. Now coming back to the ocean. When the sun shines on the earth more intensely in the middle, a lot of heat is absorbed by the oceans. This heat is redistributed around the globe, if I may say, internally as well as externally. By externally, I mean on the one hand, the immediate air above the ocean surface gets heated, becomes lighter, and starts to move upwards, allowing cooler, denser air to replace it from the sides. Hence, the breeze we feel around the oceans, which affects the weather in the surroundings as well. In addition, when the water surface gets heated, it evaporates and turns into water vapors, which are lighter in weight and therefore move upward. If you follow the diagram, these water vapors and warm air condense into clouds as they cool at higher altitudes. This clouds and vapors travel with the wind for maybe thousands of miles before they precipitate and fall back in the form of rain, sometimes in different parts of the ocean or at land. In fact, almost all rain that falls on the land starts off at the oceans. By doing this, not only they transfer heat and regulate climate, but they also carry essential gases and particles and redistribute these around the globe. A major heat distribution, however, is taking place through ocean currents. Ocean water is on the move all the time, affecting your climate, your local ecosystem, and the seafood that you eat. Ocean currents, abiotic features of the environment, are continuous and directed movements of ocean water. And there are two types of ocean currents, flowing both locally as well as globally. Surface currents caused primarily by the winds and deep ocean currents caused by the difference in density, which is primarily a function of temperature, salinity, and the depth of water. Large-scale surface ocean currents are driven by global wind systems that are fueled by energy from the sun. This is a good depiction of the surface currents, and you can see how these are distributed all over the globe. If you notice at the top of the Atlantic or the Pacific, you will see warm currents reaching all the way up to the frigid zone and colder deep ocean currents in blues coming down from there. This process is known as thermohaline circulation. For example, in cold regions such as the North Atlantic, ocean water loses heat to the atmosphere and becomes cold and dense. When ocean water freezes in the frigid zone, it forms sea ice, leaving behind the salt, which in turn causes the surrounding water to become saltier and denser. Dense, cold, salty water sinks to the ocean bottom. Surface water flows in to replace the sinking water, which in turn becomes cold and salty again to sink back. This starts the global conveyor belt, a connected system of deep and surface currents that circulate around the globe on a 1,000-year time span. Just imagine, especially the deep ocean currents move very slowly. And this global set of ocean currents is a critical part of Earth's climate system as well as the ocean nutrient and carbon dioxide cycles. Because, like the wind in the atmosphere, as I mentioned, these currents as well transport heat, gas, and matter around the globe, albeit in much larger quantities than the wind. Just to give you an idea of the size of these streams, look at this Gulf Stream in the North Atlantic, which originates from the Caribbean in Central America and move up north to the Arctic. I hope this is visible to you. This Gulf Stream is estimated to carry 150 times more water than the Amazon, the largest river system by volume on the earth. The heat from the Gulf Stream keeps much of northern Europe significantly warmer than other places, equally as far north. So the areas at the same latitude, which are not affected by these surface currents, face much lower temperature than the northern Europe. For example, places like Siberia. Winds, water density, and tides all drive ocean currents. Coastal and seafloor features also influence their location, direction, and speed. And interestingly, the Earth's rotation also affects ocean currents, which is called the Coriolis effect. That's how the oceans constantly interact with our natural environment and act as a heat sink. Now about the carbon. We mostly think, or we have been made to think, that the trees and forests on land act as the lungs of the earth. Truly, the trees absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen through the process called photosynthesis. In fact, the oceans absorb 54 times more carbon than the atmosphere. I think I probably mentioned it in the beginning as well. And you can see on the diagram the carbon going down and the oxygen being released in the atmosphere. And that's why they are also called as the carbon sink of the world. The ocean contains close to 40,000 gigatons of carbon. The microalgae in the ocean are responsible for greater than 50% of global primary production. Interestingly, marine animals can also help sequester carbon through a range of natural processes that include storing carbon in their bodies, excreting carbon-rich waste products that sink deep into the sea, and fertilizing or protecting marine plants. You can see in the middle of the diagram the whale pump. Whales alone could help sequester a massive 3 million tons of carbon in a year. Now, besides regulating the Earth's system, which is an extremely important function of the oceans, the ocean is also full of living and non living resources. From fisheries to marine biotechnology, minerals to renewable energy, oceans are a huge reservoir of food and an endless resource of organic and non organic materials. We all know that the oceans are a major source of food. In fact, this is perhaps the earliest usages of the seas and oceans. Seafood is one of the most preferred and healthiest of the foods. Worldwide, approximately half of the population lives in coastal zones, and about a billion people rely on fish as their main source of protein. Marine biotechnology is an emerging sector with huge potential to use marine biological systems and living organisms or derivatives to produce innovative products and services for the, let's say, health, beauty, medical industries, etc. Apart from harvesting food from the sea, many industrial processes worldwide rely on the marine environment for resources such as oil, gas, and marine aggregates. The oceans offer enormous potential for renewable energy technologies as well, such as harnessing of wave energy and the tidal movement, recovery of hydrogen from the seawater, and development of biomass energy from biological sources of the sea like the kelp, which is also called the king of the seaweeds. This plant can grow at an astonishing rate of 2 feet per day. Even the wind generated across the coast is a product of the ocean, which is being used for energy generation. There is a lot more that the oceans contribute in terms of economic, political, and military aspects. In this talk, to keep it short, I have only spoken about the significance of the ocean as far as our existence on the planet Earth is concerned. Because only once we understand how crucial the seas are, then we'll take measures to help maintain their health also. If the oceans affect our environment, then the opposite is also true. The environment also affects the ocean. Please remember, the nature has a very robust and foolproof system of regulating the environment, but it is designed for the natural activities. The man-made activities and the pollution is the one which is causing imbalance in that system, and that needs to be addressed. Like everything else, the ocean also has a certain capacity. And I'm sure we all recall that little experience we used to do when we were young, that if you add sugar to a glass of water and stir it, it dissolves. But if you keep on adding sugar, a stage comes where no matter how vigorously you shake it or stir it, it will not be able to take more sugar. That is true for the ocean as well. There is a limited amount of carbon and heat that the ocean can absorb. What if it reaches its limits? Will we be able to sustain ourselves? Whatever pollution we add to the environment or directly to the oceans, it affects our weather patterns, it affects our climates, and already we see that the entire world is experiencing extreme weather conditions. We must understand and work hard together to help mitigate, if not reverse, these changes in the ocean system, only for the sake of our future generations.